Hi, friends. My name is Priscilla, and I am a co host of the podcast Ethereal Material. And this is my beautiful co host, Carla.
My name is Carla. Welcome, Ethereal Material. We're very excited because we like all things wow, and that means ethereal material.
And we are both professional evidential mediums. Together, we've been doing it for a few decades if we combine our professional
Yep.
history. So lots of practice, lots of experiences, lots of learning opportunities for us as mediums, and also for you guys as potential sitters or clients, not necessarily of us, but of other mediums, things, to look out for. So when you listen to our podcast, you'll hear stories of things that we like to break down, we like to dissect, to get to the bottom of, but also some of our experiences with our clients.
Absolutely. We want you to always have the best readings with anyone that you possibly can. But we're also really big on talking about other stuff that's wow, that isn't just talking to dead folk,
That's right.
because that's what we do every day, and psychic readings. But we want to talk about UFOs, life after death.
Mm.
We have both bent a number of spoons in our life. Yes, spoon bending, believe it or not, is actually a thing.
And it's so
ESP,
fun. Yep.
everything. So we want your ideas. Um, and we want to talk about things, even if we don't subscribe to them, we will give them credence and talk about them and see. We'll give the facts. We're very practical.
That's right. We like to know both the practical side of things, as you said, as well as the aspects that cannot be, shaped down into the rational mind. I mean, so much of this sixth sense ethereal stuff does not work with the conscious mind, the rational mind, and we can't make rational sense of it. So there's always going to be some measure of faith or believing or being comfortable with the mystery. Nevertheless, I know I can speak for myself that if it doesn't have a practical application in life, I'm not probably going to spend a lot of time on it, me, myself, as a practitioner.
However, what we think is practical, some people might not think is
That's
practical.
right.
So we really do want to extend out to things that are very unusual, because just because they might not be in our wheelhouse doesn't mean they aren't real. I would ask you just simply one question alone. Do you see anything between my hands? You don't. But there's a lot of energy,
Mm.
air, and a lot in between there. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not real.
We've had some guests, we've had some feedback, we've certainly had some clients and friends who are committed to their understanding of a previous lifetime, the Akashic records, seeing auras, reading auras. And these things for me are fascinating because just like any profession, there are multiple departments. I mean, I am a evidential medium. That means that if a spirit person comes through for me, they're going to give me not only evidence of who they were when they were here, but that they're in your life right now. So you will hear their name, their profession, memories that they have with the sitter, but they'll also talk about what they saw the sitter do yesterday or what they're planning to do tomorrow. So for me, that's evidential. There are clients and guests who've called me, people who've called me and said, I think there's a spirit in my house. Can you come check on it? And I don't do houses. I
No.
don't, that's not my wheelhouse. Or I've had clients say, can you see my spirit guides? I believe in spirit guides, but that's not my comfort zone because for me, it can't be proven. It can't, there can be evidence for something like this. Now, that doesn't mean that a person out there doesn't have evidence themselves
Right.
of someone in their home or a spirit guide, but that's not something that I feel like I can deal in professionally.
That's a great point, because just last week absolutely happened. This is an example of something I didn't think somebody could prove, and I actually didn't want to bring it through. And it
Really?
turns out that she could. I was reading a woman who I have read, let's say, 8 years. A long time she's been a part of my clients. And I know that a friend of hers passed away. I brought her through many times,
Mm-hmm.
and she said to me, can you bring through so and so? She said, this is the week of her passing. I said, okay. But now so I looked at her and I said, now you're going to have me, she's got to bring through evidence, new evidence. So I
Right.
know it's her because this client knows me so well.
Mm.
If I say she says X, Y, and Z, she will believe me. But my bar is higher than
Yeah.
that. We still have to prove it. So I connected to the woman and I said, she said she tried to call you. Now, I know for a fact that the woman had passed away. That I remembered and she knew had passed away and was not found immediately. It was a day or two. So I said, she was trying to call you. I look at her and go, I'm sorry, you're not, I know you're not going to be able to prove that. I said, I'm sorry, that's what she's giving me. Give me a minute. She's showing me a phone. She's by the phone. And she said, but I want her to know I tried to call her. What I did not know is that when the woman was found, she was sitting at a phone. I had no idea of this. Bringing her
I have chills. I
was
love
like,
it.
That's never come up before. And she was like, wow. I said, okay. Because I actually said to her, you can't prove she was trying to call you. This isn't good enough for me.
Right.
And she said, I think I can.
Yeah.
So that was cool to me. That was last week.
That's so fun because what we have to do is we have to not censor our thoughts as they come through. So it can be very challenging when you know the client and you've brought the spirit person through before to say, well, I know that can't be proven, or I know that's not right. And sometimes we have to just put our own, it's hard to do, but put our own filter, turn that off and just say it anyway.
Absolutely. Because if I didn't, and I thought to myself, because I thought she's not going to prove this. And even though I know this client knows me well enough to believe what I'm saying, it's not good enough for me.
Right.
So I just said it. Had I not said it and filtered it, she wouldn't have gotten that amazing evidence. I don't know. And that's with so many people.
Yeah, sure.
But also, I think you'd agree that you do have to filter with respect. So if you see something, and I say this to people who are going into this line of work, if you see something, be cautious of how you say it. You're approaching someone who has emotions and a psychological makeup you know nothing about, or maybe going through something, and they may misinterpret what you say. Or just please don't be rude. Because I years ago, I've been getting read since I think I was 14, my first reading. It wasn't medium. And I have seen some, like, just rude, and like, some are just actually rude. And some don't realize that what they're saying has a bigger impact on someone. So please always ask whether it's a psychic or a medium, or whoever it is, ask them to, if they're not being nice, you can tell them.
Sure.
Because that's unacceptable. But ask them to clarify, because you might think that they mean something that we don't mean.
Right.
Especially when you're asking about relationships with people.
Right.
Because I'll say something like, things are rocking now, X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, I need to get a divorce. I mean, that's a big one. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Right.
I did not say that. So clarify, please.
Yeah. And it does have to, we're translating really. So the emotion from the spirit person, the images from the spirit person have to pass through our own sensory experience here in the physical world. So if I feel a lot of sadness, or I feel a lot of, anger or something like this, I have to be cautious about how I bring that through. For example, I had a client not too long ago, and in the spirit world was the husband, and he came through with such sadness. And I know, well, it's been my experience. Can't say I know that spirit people they have emotions in the spirit world, but they're not so tied up to the ego the way they are in the physical world. So the ego, the part that judges things as good and bad, that us and them, that we can't escape as human beings. I'm feeling this sadness from this man, and I want to convey it without leaving my client with the impression that her husband is miserable in heaven. So it was, I had to sit with that for a while and have a kind of a conversation with him before I said it to her. And what it ended up being was he expressed a lot of sadness because there was a countdown. They knew that he was going to pass. And he wanted to bring through his sadness at the end and how they had cried together. And so he brought that through, but he dumped it on me with a feeling like, I'm sad now. So we do have to be, you're right, we do have to filter it somehow, or throw it back to the spirit person. Have a heart for the sitter who's sitting with us too, because we don't want to leave them disempowered or, worse off than when they came in. And if you have a reader, like you were saying, who's rude or too blunt, And you see your client feeling worse after they leave you, and well, that's not what's supposed to happen.
It's not. And we can't control everything. So I've definitely brought through in 15 years of this every
Yeah.
day. I mean, there was a time where most of my career I read 7 days a week.
Mm.
I did. I just couldn't stop working. I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I've certainly thought I expressed myself well and reiterated, and the person just couldn't get out of their own head.
Sure.
That's,
Yeah.
another story,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, that's not what I meant. And I
Yeah.
clarified this. I don't know what more I can do. But
Yeah.
that's baggage that we can't control.
Right.
And I actually
And that,
suggest, that someone not get a reading
yeah.
if you're not ready.
Yeah. I think, what you're saying is so true, particularly around relationships,
Mostly
particularly
when it
around
is.
romantic relationships. I have had clients who, want to ask about their sweetheart, and part of me is going, when they start to tell the story, and you too, we don't like people to give us a whole lot of
Less is
information
more,
before we begin.
please.
But, if they're blurting out, is he cheating? Is he going to come back? I almost want to say you don't need a psychic reading, because
Yeah.
if you feel it already, you know
I
already.
actually have said that.
You just need a little validation. I have too. But, like, I'm going to save you some money here,
Right.
Same red flags you saw a year ago, they're still here. But that can be, those sorts of messages can be easily misinterpreted because the client may not want to hear the truth. And so it can be a delicate balance, a delicate line to walk, where you have to correct their reinterpretation of your message, especially when it comes to psychic readings. I don't get that so much with mediumship, but with
No.
psychic readings, when there is a relationship question, and I feel that what I'm about to say is not what they want to hear. There are a couple of ways I go about it, but usually, almost always, part of that is I ask them, how do you really, after I give my sense, how do you really feel about that? And they almost to a person say, yeah, I felt the same way. Or I had a feeling that there was infidelity, or I had a feeling that, she's gone for good, or whatever that might be. And I like to ask that just so that, in so many toxic relationships, we're being gaslit, and we have stopped trusting in our own sense about things. So when you can throw it back to the client and say, and how do you feel? Does this resonate with you? And how do you feel about that? It sometimes can be the kind of closure that they need, even if it isn't the answer that they want.
That's an excellent point as far as closure. And I also would suggest that if you're wanting, and you're right, it's with relationships.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to know if someone's being unfaithful or X, Y, and Z, and even if many, not everyone, goes to every psychic there is, until, so say there's 10, 9 have told you there's a problem, and 1 doesn't, and that's the one you like. You hate all the ones that told you, but you wouldn't be making all the calls if you didn't have your own sixth sense. And as I always say, the shades of gray of fidelity are huge.
Yes.
There's a big difference between did your sweetheart call somebody, talk to someone, have a cup of coffee, versus took them off to the south of France for 2 weeks and, has a family with them. There's a lot in between, and that can be misconstrued. So I know I have to be cautious with that.
Yeah. That's a kind of a delicate, and also with crime or theft, is somebody stealing from me, or is somebody plotting against me?
True.
These can
Plot is different than actual doing.
Exactly. So we have a lot of fun with our clients, and
so much fun.
I just love people, and how complex and vulnerable we are, just in general, when we choose to love, or put our trust in a psychic we don't know, or a medium we don't know, or want to connect with someone who's passed away. So it's really a sacred honor, I think, to do readings for people.
I find it, as I always say, if I'm healing you, you're healing me.
Yeah.
And which brings me to, we do this every single day, right? We've said that. But within that, because we do it every single day, this is also why we have an interest outside of, I don't want to say just talking to dead people, but talking to dead people, intuition. We kind of elevate, and we're like, I love NDEs. I'm all about the near-death experience. Between the two of us, we've got certifications in X, Y, and so you name the crystal, the pendulum, Spirit guides I don't do. I have that certification. I took that class. So between us, we have a lot in our, basket of knowledge and want to know more. There's certain things I don't know a lot about, and I want to learn more. So that's why we're doing this. So it's a little bit of, as I say, the wow.
And that's why I think you can't help but be open in this field, the ESP field and everything that's under that umbrella. So if you hear somebody say things like, well, it's absolutely like this,
right?
Or, heaven looks like this, or, I remember a very famous medium. She's passed away now. She was on TV. And she used to describe in her books, and when she was a guest on like daytime talk shows.
I know who you might be talking
probably
about.
do.
She died right before I had tickets to see her.
Yes,
she died
exactly that one.
Before. I was like, I said I'm never going to see her. These tickets aren't going to work.
Right.
And then the theater called me because they knew me, and they said, "You said you weren't coming. She died." That was before the press got it. Okay, go ahead. Let's tell that.
Yeah, she would, but it would irritate me because one thing she insisted on was that when a person passes away, they find themselves at the steps of a beautiful white temple or church. This was part, and then there's a library over there, and then there's people in white robes over there, whatever. But, that rubbed me the wrong way, not only because of her like delivery was, this is what it is. This is absolutely what you will find. But, I'd had some bad experiences in a church, and I thought, I'm going to die and go to church. That's
I'm scared.
Is that hell? So, if I find myself in the steps of a temple, I'm going to wonder if I have ascended or descended, so be careful about readers of any sort who give you absolutes. There is no time in the sixth sense. There is no location in the sixth sense. So it's very likely that a person cannot tell you exactly when or exactly where or exactly how long from now. Those are, they're just not fixed in a part of the sense where there is no location or time. So another reason why I'm so open to hearing stories and experiences and even practitioners of other modalities, because for me, it's absolutely fascinating. I know I can't say that absolutely isn't true because, who am I to say, if you're a remote viewer and you find lost pets, you heal through, through a deep meditation. That stuff blows my mind because first of all, it's outside of my own individual experience for the most part. But I can't deny that it's real because I talk to dead people.
Right, exactly. So, how can I tell you you're wrong?
Right, exactly. How can I say you can't heal remotely when I talk to dead people? So we love to hear, break down, examine, and then put back together all things wow. Because we know that there are no hard boundaries when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's really a joy to work in this area.
Right and wrong.
I don't think so.
I mean, I always say my catchphrase is "in my experience."
Yeah, right.
Because people say, "Well, another reader told me that X, Y, and Z, and this is the way it is." And I will say, in my experience, I agree. Or my experience, I have not seen that. Because there's many things that they'll say, and I'm like, I've not seen that.
Yeah, yeah.
And an example of that for me is someone who's had a hand in their passing.
Mm.
I have had people say they've gone to mediums that cannot bring them through at all. I've hundreds and hundreds I brought through.
Mm.
Do you? Because I think
just last week I had a client and she, her brother came through from the spirit world, and I said, the first thing he wants me to say to you is I'm not in hell. Mm-hmm. And she burst out laughing and she said, my family were conservative Christians. She got it out before I was able to say it, and he took his own life. And we weren't allowed to talk about him because my parents said he's in hell and we'll never see him again. And it was so interesting to me that before I knew anything about, I knew he was a brother, I knew he was a young man, but I didn't know, he hadn't shown me how, but he, it almost felt like he's like, I know I got like 3 minutes, so I'm going to get the most important message out, which is I am not in hell. Wow. And she burst out laughing, and it was really, really delightful because she was like, I knew it. I don't believe in that. She had moved away, but sadly, both her parents did. And
that's very sad.
Yeah. So for a number of years, they'd lived with denying that he had existed, and that they would never see him again.
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame.
Well,
Life is so cool. So is
And
death,
death
really.
is so cool.
Right.
I always say that here,
Because it's not the end.
here's me when I pass away. This is the all powerful Oz or God or what you'd like to call. I always say it. There's a board, a clipboard, pad, and them saying, "Oh, Carla, ha, you're going to this room," and me going into panic like I'm in Catholic school in high school, and the nuns are taking me to the office, and they're going to be like, "So you thought it was this way? Well, you're a little bit wrong. You thought it was this way. You're a little bit wrong, and we're going to teach you now."
Mm,
I don't think I know everything at all, but I know
right.
there's so much more to
Yeah.
learn, and they're going to be like, "Come on over. No,
Yeah.
you have to learn more."
Right.
I know
Right.
it.
And that's exciting because that's adventurous. And, if you're open minded and curious and a student of things and you don't think you know everything, I mean, life just can blow you away. It's amazing.
There's always more to learn.
There's always more to learn. So we would love to hear from you. You can reach us. You can email us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. If you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube, if you're on our podcast, you can leave us fan mail. You can also find us on Instagram. And we're here. We drop a new one every Friday, and we would love to hear from you. We would love to talk about what you want to talk about. We would love to talk to you. So,
Yes.
if you'd like to be a guest on our show, drop us a line at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. Or again, you can message us through the fan mail. We can't answer the fan mail on Buzzsprout,
Unfortunately.
but we can obviously answer your email. Or if you leave us a comment on Instagram, we can do that too.
They can message on Instagram as well.
Yeah, as well. All right. Well, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
It is. We're
Hang
gonna
out with
keep
Spirit.
vibing.
We're going to keep vibing. We're going to keep believing. And we will talk to you guys again pretty soon. Bye.